Today, we're tackling a topic that many of you have asked about. How much deposit do you need to get a mortgage if you have bad credit? So if you're looking to buy a home, but you're worried about bad credit and just how much deposit that you need, make sure that you stick around. Hi there and welcome to the Bad Credit Mortgage channel. If you're worried about bad credit and feeling overwhelmed by the mortgage process, you're in the right place. First, let's quickly define what do we mean by bad credit. In short, bad credit is a general term used to describe something that's having a negative impact on your credit report. Some examples of this would be a late payment on a credit card, a county court judgment for a parking ticket, or even a bankruptcy. If you'd like to know more about what is bad credit, good news, we've got a video on that too, and you can check that out by clicking this link in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Now that you know what bad credit is, let's quickly define what do we mean by deposit. A deposit, in the context of applying for a mortgage, is the amount of money that you pay up front when you're buying a home, and this is usually a percentage of the agreed purchase price. For example, if you're buying a home for £200,000 and you're putting down a 10% deposit, you are going to have to pay £20,000 at the start. Common examples of how people get together a deposit will be from their personal savings, a gift from their family, or some inheritance. So, how much does the amount of deposit you have affect your chances of being approved for a mortgage? The answer is quite a lot. In simple terms, the larger your deposit is, the greater your chances are of being approved for a mortgage. When a mortgage lender is deciding whether your credit will be accepted, they will typically look at three main factors. Number one, what type of bad credit occurred? For example, was it a late payment on a credit card? Number two, when did the bad credit take place? For example, the late payment on the credit card, was it 6 months ago or was it 12 months ago? And number three, has the bad credit been resolved? For example, the late payment on the credit card, has it been brought back up to date? In almost all circumstances, the more time that has passed, the more lenient the lender will be. The lender would also be more understanding if the bad credit has been paid back. Separately, some types of bad credit will be treated more harshly than others. For example, debt management plans, IVAs, and bankruptcies, because these are treated as some of the more severe types of bad credit. So, before we jump into exactly how much deposit you need to be accepted for a bad credit mortgage, it's important to remember and it's important to mention that all of the information contained within this video is based on market conditions at the time of recording and is designed to give an indication of what may be accepted, which is based on our experience, which is of course subject to change at any time. So let's start by looking at what your options would look like when putting down a 5% deposit. Although it is possible to get a bad credit mortgage with a 5% deposit, you will find there are very few options out there and that mortgage lenders will be very strict on the amount of bad credit that they can accept. Now, you might be thinking, what if I don't have a deposit? Well, unfortunately, at this moment in time, if you have bad credit, there are currently no options available to secure a mortgage without a deposit. So if this does apply to you, stay positive, keep saving, and keep working hard on your credit. Anyway, back to getting a bad credit mortgage with a 5% deposit. After we've taken a quick look at 5%, we're going to move straight onto a 10% deposit, which is really when your options start to open up. County court judgments and defaults can be accepted, but generally speaking, these will need to have been registered over 3 years ago. For example, something such as a county court judgment for a parking ticket that was under £300 may be accepted even if it was recorded within the last 3 years. This is because something under £300 is considered quite a low amount to be registered against you. Discretion on the type of account the bad credit was for may also be given. For example, if you had defaulted on something like a mobile phone contract, this may be treated more leniently than if you default on something like a credit card. Some late and missed payments may be allowed, but usually anything more than 2 within the last 12 months would be a problem with the mortgage lenders. Any debt management plans, IVAs, and bankruptcies would need to have been registered over 6 years ago and have been paid off. If you've owned a home before and you have any missed mortgage payments, this will be difficult. However, if you've maybe only missed one within the last 12 months, providing it is up to date, there might be a couple of options out there. So moving on to a 10% deposit. This would usually be considered as the minimum requirement for the vast majority of mortgage lenders out there if you have bad credit. Now, if you're wondering why have we gone straight from a 5% deposit to a 10% deposit, why not a 6% or a 9%? That's because a mortgage lender typically won't change their criteria and requirements until you reach that next multiple of 5%. For example, if you have a 7% deposit, the mortgage lender would assess you the same way as someone with a 5% deposit. And if you have a 13% deposit, the mortgage lender would assess you in the same way as somebody with a 10% deposit. So with that being said, here is some of the bad credit that could be accepted with a 10% deposit. Defaults and county court judgments can be accepted, but usually these will need to have been recorded over 2 years ago. Again, some discretion may be given here if it was recorded within 2 years for the same reasons that were previously mentioned. If you've had an IVA or a bankruptcy, there may now be some options available to you, providing this has been discharged or what you may know as paid off for over 3 years. But in the majority of cases, this will need to have been registered over 6 years ago and satisfied. If you have an active debt management plan, providing this was registered or taken out over 12 months ago, providing all payments have been made on time, there may be some options for you. Missed or late payments on an unsecured credit agreement, for example, on a credit card, depending on how many have been missed and when this happened, they could be accepted. If you are currently behind on payments across multiple accounts, then this is likely to be a problem. However, if you are no more than 2 payments behind on any one account, then this could still be possible. If you've owned your own home before and you've missed mortgage payments, like with a 5% deposit, it will be difficult. However, if you've maybe only missed one in the last 12 months, there might be a couple of options out there. Now, moving on to a 15% deposit. As you'll know by now, putting down that extra 5% deposit can open up more options. And because you're putting down a larger deposit, generally speaking, you will be offered a lower interest rate. So let's have a look at some of the bad credit you could have accepted with a 15% deposit. The key differences you will see between putting down a 10% and a 15% deposit are defaults and county court judgments can now be accepted after they are just 6 months old. Like before, discretion can still be used dependent on circumstances within the last 6 months. IVAs can now potentially be accepted providing it has been satisfied for just 2 years, or it was taken out over 6 years ago and it's been satisfied. If you've been bankrupt before, you'll now find that there are more options if this has been discharged or paid off for over 3 years. Debt management plans can now be active and be accepted subject to all payments being made on time. If you've had any missed or late payments on an unsecured credit agreement, such as a credit card or a loan, the mortgage lenders will allow more late and missed payments with a 15% deposit than there will with a 10% deposit. And more can be accepted even if you're currently behind on payments. There will be more leniency given with missed mortgage payments as long as you've had no more than 1 missed mortgage payment in the last 12 months and no more than 4 missed mortgage payments in the last 24 months. Moving on from a 15% deposit to a 20% deposit. Interestingly, there are very few differences in what options will be available by putting down that additional 5% deposit. The 2 key differences with this level of deposit are defaults and county court judgments can now be accepted after they are just 3 months old. However, there are restrictions on just how many you can have. Once again, you're going to be allowed more missed and late payments on an unsecured credit agreement such as a credit card or a loan with a 20% deposit than you would be with a 15% deposit. And this applies if you're currently behind on payments on just one account or on multiple accounts. The final deposit amount that we're going to look at is 30%. This is because after this level of deposit, not a huge amount changes with what the mortgage lenders would accept. The key differences you will see by putting down a 30% deposit are current IVAs can be accepted even if they haven't been paid off, providing all payments have been made on time. As long as you haven't had more than 1 missed mortgage payment in the last 3 months, there should be some options out there for you. Now that we've covered the impact that the size of your deposit will have on your bad credit mortgage application, it's important that we keep in mind that this isn't the only thing that the lenders will look at. They'll also consider things such as your employment situation, your income and expenditure, and the overall condition of the property that you're buying. So, to wrap it up, while having bad credit can pose its challenges, having a larger deposit can greatly improve your chances of getting a mortgage. And if you have a 10% deposit or more, hopefully you have a few more options than you originally thought. If you have any questions or any ideas of videos that you'd like to see us do in the future, please put them in the comments below. So, thanks for watching. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications for all future tips on all things bad credit and bad credit mortgage related, and we'll see you in the next video.